This is chapter 25, entitled Independent Study, Billings and the North American Sacred Tradition. This chapter is about music in America, and the classic period is from 1750 to 1820, a relatively short period of time. But I don't know if this music is, well, I do know it's not a great example of classical music, but it does occur in the time of the classical period, and it is in America. So music in America at that time, like most things, were a lot of things were not at the same advancement of Europe with those subjects. And America was trying to raise itself to be at the same level with art and technology as Europe. And it took a while, and perhaps until after the Civil War, that American music started to get respect from Europe. So this is far before that. It says here that colonists in New England took part in congregational hymn singing, which often involved a call and response practice called lining out. So America became the United States in 1776, approximately. And when we talk about colonists, these are people that came from Europe, mainly came here for religious reasons, especially in the New England. In the Southwest United States, they came here to conquer, but the colonists that went to New England were looking for religious freedom. And they taught music with a call and response method called lining out. And that's what they called it, I believe, in Scotland, where a leader would sing the music and then the congregation would sing back. And this is a way of teaching music without reading music. And consequently, as time passed, people would change the songs a little bit because they could. And you would have this heterophonic music going on. Remember, heterophonic is where you have the same melody, but there are subtle things going on that it's not exactly the same. So it causes a little bit of funniness with the music because it's not exactly together, right? It is together, but there's improvisation that's going on, basically. Some congregations later fostered choirs that developed more elaborate notation-based singing traditions, and we'll look at that briefly. But they tried to find a way to teach reading music easily, and it was not really any better way than it was already existed. By the end of the 1700s, a tradition of singing schools had developed in North America. William Billings' anthem. What's an anthem? It's a work composed for congregational singing. David's Lamentation is the name of the piece, an example of a work composed for congregational singing. So they did believe that music was important, right? In communities that could not afford a songbook for each church member, everyone could learn the melody and text this way of lining out. So the end result, you had monophonic unison singing, right, by the congregation. But it ended up being heterophonic. And the church leaders were unhappy. They thought the music was sloppy because of this oral tradition, and it probably was. So they started to encourage people to learn to read music and started to teach people in the church to read music because they thought this was an important part of being educated. Growing musical literacy. So as that developed, they could use written music. And it says 1720 singing schools sponsored designed to teach notation and music theory needed for printed instructional materials. And so teachers were doing this. Semi-professional teaching opportunities arose where you could work for the church, not get paid very much, but you could be involved with music and teaching music. And there was lots of churches. And this is the one method that they used. I don't understand it completely. It does not seem like it's any easier than just learning to read music. But they would have these symbols here and show you the symbol, and somehow you were supposed to remember that that meant that note. Or anyway, they used it for quite some time, and I believe they still use it in some churches in the South as a tradition. So there was a need for singing books, right? And William Billings wrote a number of books. Most famous American composer of polyphonic repertoire. He was self-taught, practice of the trades. He was highly respected, and he wrote these books, right? Over 340 works used in singing schools and churches, 6 primary collections, including the New England Psalm Singer. There were probably thousands of these books printed, and because of the copyright laws, he did not make hardly any money because of it, as a result of his writing. And even though they were very popular and he was recognized, he was not very successful from a money point of view. And anyway, sad to say. So he was friends with Paul Revere. Remember that guy from the in the tower with the swinging of the lantern? And Paul Revere was actually an engraver, right, a printer, and so they were friends, and he helped him with his book. And so this music that we are going to hear, most likely a lot of the figures from the Revolutionary period that we know as statesmen, most likely were involved and sang this kind of music or went to churches where this music was sung. So it's a way of reaching back and saying, well, what did they actually listen to? And most likely this. So it's not bound by European traditions. He didn't follow the rules in writing music, and wrote music that was easy to sing, but to sound good, right? Simple homophonic textures, usually one melody and supported by other lines. But the melody was often in the tenor line, not the top line. Here is a right frontage, the cover of a book, to New England's Psalm Singer from 1770. This is interesting because it shows, right, singers around a table performing a canon for 6 voices with a ground bass part, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And so this is the music here that would be written, and they would look at that so that everybody could see it around the table. I don't know how that exactly works, but that's the idea. Fewer copies, because if you bought a copy, you had to pay money for it. We don't have any money, so let's just share the copy. So what is David's lamentation? The text is again from the Bible, designed for sacred congregational singing. Here's an example of congregational singing from this period of time in an American church. And you can see everybody is intent on singing. And the nice thing about this is everybody was welcome to sing, whether you were good at it or not. And it's fun to try and sing, and especially with your group, that you feel part of something. And isn't that what going to church is about? So it's written for soprano, alto, tenor, bass, designed for congregational singing. Homophony in all voices. The B section is a short solo in the bass. We'll listen for that. And then the homophonic close. It's interesting music, but it's not too complex. And the neat thing, it is American music, and our forefathers did listen to this music. Let's listen to David's Lamentation. William Billings is the composer's name. William Billings.
David.